Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Set It Straight with Doc Bots. My name is Todd Bivona from Gotham Trinity Productions. I'll be your host today, along with my co-host, Michael Gaziuso, partner at Gotham Trinity Productions. Joining us a little bit will be Dr. Thomas Bottiglieri from New York Presbyterian Hospital. And Mike, again, there's been a lot of information going on. We're trying to go through it, you and I, a little bit. One of the things that we've been talking about is the different strands. So there's a certain strand out right now, right. Of COVID-19. But what about come summertime? There were thoughts out there like, oh, well, when it heats up, it'll kill the virus. I've heard that. I've heard it'll come out in the fall. Mike, what have you heard?
I was actually watching something last night that the virus is actually the perfect virus. That the way it's already evolved to attach a lot easier to the cells, opposed to previous viruses in the past. So it's like almost when it's going into the body, it's not mutating, right? Because it doesn't need to get any better because it's already perfect. I mean, but I don't know. But who knows?
Right. So it's a question of, is this strand going to have a finished cycle? Like, is this strand going to stop at June, or can it continue on? Is until we find a cure, which is a whole nother episode. Could it mutate and have a summer strand? What about the fall? What about next year? Are we going to get something like this again?
If everybody stayed away, okay, if everybody did quarantine and it went to a point, would it be a point where it's the last person has it and then the virus just dies? Because or you're right, it's like, or can it lay dormant and then just come back with a vengeance? And so everything is being postponed right to November, and then all of a sudden that's when it's going to kick back into season again, with a vengeance. Like, that's scary. It's a scary thing.
So let's set this straight with Doc Bots and have him join us in. Doc, you hear what we're talking about here is the different strands of this and what we're dealing with now as opposed to summer, fall, with everything getting postponed to the fall. What if a different strand comes out? Thoughts?
Well, I think we missed our opportunity to like eliminate this virus. So the fact that it's everywhere in the world and the numbers are now well over 1 million of established cases. We're getting close to 1.5 million established cases in the world. And I think we're at about 85,000 here in New York City alone. I don't think the virus is just going to go away. Now, of course, nobody really knows what to expect, but this is one of those viruses that can be transmitted from humans to animals and back from animals to humans. At least that's what we think, starting with a pangolin in China or a bat. And now we know that it has the potential to infect feline species with that tiger we talked about yesterday. But the seasonality of this thing is going to be probably not a factor. I mean, if we just think about temperature alone, like Mike said, it's down in the Florida Keys, it's down in Miami, and it's 90 degrees there. So I don't know that the seasonal change in temperature is going to eliminate the virus. And there's some people who think that this new coronavirus is going to be the beginning of a sort of like a flu seasonality, that every year the corona instead of the flu is the thing that we're thinking about and that's on our minds. We won't know until we get past this surge in cases, and hopefully we're at that flattening of the curve. But there is no real way to know the answer to this question at this point. The answer is we have to just remain vigilant until we see a decrease in numbers. But more likely than not, at least in my opinion, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be here with us for quite a long time.
But I guess the overall overriding point here, Doc, we're not sure. There's just so much that we're not sure about. We don't know when this is going to stop. We don't know when quarantine is going to end. We don't know what kind of strand we're going to see in the summer. We don't know if it could rear its ugly head again in the fall.
Well, the mutating thing, I didn't talk to you about the mutation. I think that's what you're hinting at now. Is that what you're asking? Then the mutation?
Yes, the mutation. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's not looking like this virus is actually mutating actively in the moment. Like Mike said, and it's an interesting way to think about it, it's sort of the perfect virus in terms of the receptors that it's expressing. And you guys have heard of ACE inhibitors. You ever hear of those hypertension medications called ACE inhibitors?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically that receptor in your lung is where this virus attaches itself to. So the way it's infecting us makes it a perfect virus in the sense that it gets in and it doesn't become symptomatic for 5 to 8 days. And people are able to shed that virus even before they have symptoms. And then when the symptoms begin, sometimes it begins as a very mild illness. So in terms of mutating, if it mutates, it might actually make itself less infective and less effective at doing those things. So it's expressing receptors that attach to specific areas in your lung tissue, and it doesn't get there quickly. It slowly migrates from the nasopharynx down to the throat and then into the lungs. So there's the testing is not perfect either. The way we test is a nasopharyngeal swab, and if you ever see this done correctly, it's actually kind of bugged out. There's a video going on YouTube with an ear, nose, and throat surgeon who does it correctly, and that swab goes straight back into the nasopharynx. And you'll see doctors kind of stick this thing straight up and swab here. That's not where the virus lives. It actually lives straight back where your nose meets your throat. Yeah, so we have a lot of what's called false negatives. So whatever the number of cases are, it's actually probably very much higher in terms of how many people have this virus.
In another episode, we're going to talk about testing and talk about the results and how these numbers might be off today. Wow. Even they just had a news release earlier in the day today. They indicating that the cases might not be appropriately recorded. There's people with symptoms that might not have got tested. So we'll get to that. But I find it interesting that you said the mutation could actually make this strand a little bit weaker, and that what Mike was saying, this is like almost like the perfect storm. So this is like a perfect strand. So I find that interesting how this can mutate and actually become weaker. So that's a great takeaway.
Have you ever heard of the concept of regression to the mean? This is like a mathematical concept. So in other words, maybe you have a really tall person in your family, or maybe you have a really short person in your family, but the average height is somewhere around 5'9" for most people. So over generations, things tend to regress towards the mean, meaning if you have somebody who's 6'10" in this generation, maybe 5 generations from now, his ancestors are going to be closer to 5'9". So this virus is on an extreme. It's at a very high level of infectivity and very, very successful virus. At some point or another, it'll act more like, when it mutates, future generations of it may act more like other coronavirus strands, which really only cause the common cold. And similarly, we're evolving simultaneously. Our immune systems are constantly evolving to match the threats that are presenting to us.
All right. I think that's a fair enough take there, Mike, right? I mean, that dived in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
You know what I think about that, Todd, though? I mean, I feel for your grandkids.
Yeah.
As each generation.
Oh, they're good. Todd's generations are going to get taller.
They're going to be
Todd's going to get taller.
Yeah. His kids and grandkids
are going to be 6'5". My wife, bless her soul, she's pushing 5 feet tall. She's like 5'1". But yeah, my kids are going to be 6'5" and 6'7". I can't wait.
They're going to carry you.
That's it. That's fine. They'll take good care of me. All right, Doc.
Get a little so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. All right, that'll do it. That'll do it for this episode. A good take on the different strands and what we can expect this summer, this fall. We'll see you guys next time on Set It Straight with Bots.